I was born in Kent in 1941. I was living in a gardener's cottage, which was outside the village, up a hill next to the big manor house. So it was quite isolated, really. I was an only child, so there was no one to play with, but I was fine. On this one particular occasion, it must have been 1947. June the 2nd, I think I've just made up because I couldn't obviously remember the particular date. But I was about 5, and that would have been 1947. On a hot summer's day, my parents took me over to the manor house. My dad did gardening at the manor house, so I was used to playing on the big lawns of the manor house and in the shrubberies there. But on this particular day, there was a fete or some sort of jubilee going on, things happening on the lawns, and it was very hot. And during the course of the afternoon, I became delirious and started to see things in a very feverish sort of way. So everything was very real and bright, and so this is my sort of memory of the occasion translated through my delirium of the moment. So I do remember there were dancing girls there. They were wearing white tutus actually, and obviously from a local dancing school or something. And there was a black dog who came and sniffed me. There were lots of ice creams, which was very nice. And there were religious children. I don't think the boy had a cross on his backside. That's artistic license, I think. But they were obviously from a Sunday school or some sort of religious group. Everything had an intensity to it that made it like a sort of vision, really. Quite interesting, really. And I had to be taken home because I was running a quite high fever. There's a suggestion of RAF roundels up in the top corners because I was crazy about aeroplanes, so I made lots of little model aeroplanes at the time, and also did lots of drawings of aeroplanes. I remember, well, this is random really, but I remember some relations. I didn't have any friends because there weren't any children anywhere near, but there was a visit from an auntie and cousins, and they were sitting around and watching me do a drawing of an aeroplane. And I remember someone saying, "Oh look, he always starts with the cockpit," which is true, which is what I did. I also remember on my first day at school, we did drawings, and I did a drawing, and it was a close-up of the fuselage of an aeroplane viewed from the side with a big door where the parachutists were going to jump out. I'd only had time to do the fuselage and the door. And the teacher came round and said, "Oh, is that a house?" Well, I was livid. My style hasn't changed very much over the past 20 years. It was when I'd stopped teaching, and when we were all teaching people, obviously in art, to be expressive, to use expressive line, to use rich sort of emotional brushwork and so on and so on. I had a sudden change of tack on that, and I started doing everything that was aiming to not be expressive at all. So the areas in the picture that are all absolutely plain, they're all absolutely flat, so there's no expressive brushwork at all anywhere. And the figures are slightly sort of wooden, and deliberately wooden and inexpressive. So you create this field of, and it gives it a calmness, I think, that you don't get when you do all the expressive stuff. It was after I retired. It was a reaction against 40 years of art teaching, I think, really. I don't know, it's difficult to say, but I knew that became my way of working. I mean, I do collages as well, but for the paintings, I deliberately do this flat, inexpressive, and slightly awkward wooden style. So to get this flat paint surface, this and the other paintings I've done are all done with artists' acrylic paint, but also mixed with household emulsion paint. So it flattens everything. And because I can't have any variations here, if I need to retouch areas, I need to know that I've got exactly the right colour. So I mix all the colours in 35mm film cassette cases, and that keeps them airtight so the paint keeps, but when you need to retouch, you know you've got the exact colour that you need. Now, this is an alien encounter. The children in the picture I found on the cover of a box of a children's game from the 1930s, I think. And I took the figures from different places and lined them up in that sort of space, but tried to copy exactly the style of drawing that was in the original. I do sometimes like bad or incompetent drawing because I think occasionally that expresses more than you would express with careful, academically correct drawing. I mean, I could have drawn children better than that. I did spend 5 years at art school after all. But it was the character of the drawing that I really liked and I wanted to use. So these are the 1930s children standing up all stiff, and they're meeting an alien presence, which is there, that's there. So his name is Glugotl. And I got the name came from, it's the way that a bad ventriloquist would say blue bottle. So you try and say blue bottle with your lips and you say Glugotl. So that's his name, that's Glugotl. And he's come from a galaxy far, far away. I wanted to express him as a sort of amorphous, shapeless blob of consciousness, really, which I'd worried about for a long time because I wanted to keep the precise outlines that I used in the rest of the picture. So eventually I settled on this sort of blobby shape, which is amorphous but has got defined edges. And then it didn't have any personality at that stage, so the eyes are just two dots. It's amazing that if you get any bit of stuff like a brick or a book or a stone and you put two black dots on it, it immediately becomes a face, because our brains are programmed to see faces everywhere. So Glugotl now has a personality of some sort. The structure here, I don't know where that came from, but it was copied from somewhere. I don't like inventing things if I can avoid it. It's just to complete the composition, really, with all these organic lines. I felt I need some straight, some structured lines, and that completes the composition nicely. And the colours, again, they are pre-mixed and in sort of twilight tones, really, to get a sort of atmosphere. There are some details that the girl is holding a tube there, which I think is one of those cardboard tubes that you roll up manuscripts and put inside. And I think, I'm not sure about this, but I think she's bearing a message from the king to give to Glugotl, welcoming him to Earth. And the dot, the point of light over her head, I've used this in other pictures of mine. It denotes a special person. So in some sense she might be Glugotl's chosen one for the alien encounter. I don't know. The girl here has got a skipping rope which is trapped underneath her feet. And I don't know what that means. I have no idea. If anybody can think of an idea, enlighten me, please. Oh, and that's his flying saucer, the part of his flying saucer that he's come to Earth in. The 30s style of drawing does recur some of the time, but mostly the style is of commercial art or children's book art from the 20s to the 50s, really. Who is it for? It's for me. Whatever artists tell you, if they're a real artist, they are working for themselves. This hasn't got a message for anybody. It's not to make other people happy or more knowledgeable, or it's a record of me working out stuff that's happening in my brain. It's me dealing with all these strange images and things that happen in my brain. So it's just for me. I've never thought about other people liking my work, which is just as well. But if they do, that's fine. But if they don't bother me really. It seems a sort of selfish way of working, but I think it's really true for quite a lot of real artists, because the origins of the work that artists produced, I think they come from so deep down in your brain, in your consciousness, that the artists themselves don't really know what they're doing. They don't know what the ultimate message or content of their work is all about. They may think they do, and they may be very willing to tell you what their work's all about, but you can't trust them. Don't trust them. They don't really know what the deepest meanings of their art are about. This is one of a series of 8 collages I did. Collage itself has been around for more than 100 years now. Picasso and Braque started using bits of cut-out newspaper or other things as part of their painted compositions. I've found that when I've been doing painting for a few months, it's nice to just have a holiday doing collage before I go on to the next series of paintings, although collage is as important for me as the paintings. This is such a dense mix of image and text that you can sort of zoom into it mentally and focus on a little bit, and any little bit, if you look at images and adjacent text, you can then get a little story or a little dream or a little happening from the particular mixtures that you happen to land on. The girl cuts a cake with a knife, looks out of the window. She knows the boy is looking. Fear not the skies, fear not the boiler room, fear not the flies in their rusty colour. Far, far away, the new girl at the chip shop smiles. Lights glimmer at every door, and young girls sing, a lighted torch in one hand and a pie in the other. Mist hung heavy, frogs singing, dancing and jumping in the wet grass. So that's just that little sort of fragment there, so you can make up your own strange little stories by focusing on different bits of the composition. Over the years I've collected lots of these little images for future use, and so I've got drawers of them. And so when I start on a new collage, I bring the drawer out and get a whole enormous range of little pictures that I can then put on the table, sort through, shuffle around, and then start somewhere putting a little image down, and then it fills itself up from there. And then in these collages, I've done all the images first and then added text. For the text fragments that I use in these collages, I have lots of books of different kinds. So I sample here if I find this is it's a ladybird book. So if I find, when I'm browsing through, a little phrase there that I think might be useful to use, then I put that aside, make a note of the page number, then put it on the printer later. So I've got a whole pile of printed out selected pages from all these different kinds of books. These are all the children's books, but apart from these, I go to things like, this is The Golden Bough by James Fraser. Victorian verse, always get a phrase or a sentence here and there from Victorian poets. This is The White Goddess by Robert Graves. Again, another very eccentric reading of different European, mostly European myths and legends. The Wasteland, of course, T.S. Eliot. Great poem. Oh, this is The Boy's Book of Conjuring, which I've also used quite a lot. Another little one on crop circles. The Plato Papers by Peter Ackroyd, one of my favourite authors. There's a Hilary Mantel, Beyond Black, that I've also dipped into and used. And I think my big inspiration for the whole thing, for a lot of the things, is this Children's Games in Street and Playground by Iona and Peter Opie. I think it's late 1950s, and it's very detailed descriptions of children's games played in the daytime or after dark in different parts of Britain. So here's a printout of one of the pages that I found in one of the books, and I've indicated there which little phrases I'd be interested in using. So then, just to clear the area around it, children speak lovingly of candles fixed in gem jars. So that's such a lovely phrase. So I'm blanking out the areas around it. That'll do. When the micro Tipp-Ex has dried, I trim it out. So that's the little fragment of text. Then, having done many dozens of these, they all end up in a folder, all with tiny little bits of text from all the different books. When I've collaged the pictures, then I start with the text. So if I find a position that I might want to use that little phrase, I can then use little bits of parcel tape and just sort of tape it in position, roughly. Then later on I might decide to move it or to get rid of it altogether. So that happens over a long time, I mean weeks. I usually do work on painting for a few months and then collage for a few months, so it gives a nice little break. And the collages are more direct, more spontaneous. They can be, but the paintings need much more planning. So the fact that they're different in approach makes it nice to work in a cycle of painting, collage, which is what I've done for the last 20 years or so, I think. The drawings here are absolutely terrible. I found them in a charity shop. They must have been 1960s, I think. Children's colouring books. And I don't know who these publishers got to do the illustrations to these colouring books, but they're really terrible. And I fell in love with them immediately. All my work is autobiographical in some sense, all of it, but this is more so an idealised biographical picture. This is me. This is the cottage, the gardener's cottage that I lived in till I was 6. This is my mother. This is the green kitten. No, we didn't have a green kitten. This is an apple tree, and these are red apples on the tree. Blame the colouring book. I didn't invent it. Blame me. Yes, they are stupid apples, but I'm fine with that. It's all right. This isn't acrylic paint, actually. This is oil paint mixed with varnish. So you get a slightly glossy effect and much more transparency than you would get with acrylic paints. Its title is An Idyll, and a lot of women would say, well, hanging out washing is not my idea of an idyll, and they're probably right. But I think I was, I was pretty happy as a child, although I was on my own and had good parents. Childhood can be, I don't think it's idealising to say that childhood can be a sort of magic time just for a few years if you're very lucky. Oh, I've got a quote here. This is Lewis Carroll. He said, "I'd give all the wealth that years have piled, the slow result of life's decay, to be once more a little child for one bright summer day." It might be difficult to understand why I could have had a sort of idyllic childhood when we were in the middle of a world war. So this was the 1940s. We were in northwest Kent, so we were directly on the route that German bombers used to take up the Thames estuary to London. We didn't have much contact with the military really, but we did, on one occasion, we did see a jeep thundering by on the little road that went past where we lived. This is a jeep featured in this picture as well. In the mid-50s, there was an American comedy show called Sergeant Bilko, and it was about an American army sergeant on an army base who got up to all sorts of fiddles and got the better of his superiors in many ways.
Bilko, would you mind telling me what you're talking about?
Oh, I'm sure this'll work, sir, but if it doesn't, I'm determined to keep them rolling, sir, if I have to use rubber bands and toothpicks, but I'll keep trying, sir.
Keep trying.
So this is his daughter Mandy. So she's driving a jeep in England. And during the war, lots of local councils turned all the road signs around so that they would confuse any German parachutists who might come down in the area. So Mandy is obviously lost and confused by the road signs. In the middle of her confusion, she has a vision of some sort. It's a bit like St. Paul on the road to Damascus, I suppose, really. So her vision is of the Book of Thoth here, which is with the all-seeing eye, and mystical symbols, messages in drops of rain falling from the sky. So she's undergoing some sort of conversion. So this is Summer Camp Sausages. The subject is a young communist league, YCL summer camp in the late 1950s. You can see by the red flag. I was never a communist, but I was a member of CND, so the band The Bombers, so I did quite a few marches and a sit down. What I really would have liked after World War II was that we would become much more like a Scandinavian country. No sitting at the top tables in world policy, no empire, just a small country that tried to do things really well for its people. Anyway, that was terribly idealistic, I know. During the course of that, I met quite a few young communists, and most of them were very middle class and very nice, idealistic people. And so the picture here, there's a boy, and I think he probably went to public school, and he's a young communist, but so is she, but the girl is a Londoner, she's a Cockney. So she's saying, "Hi, I'm Polly Anders. Muck in and make yourself at home, me old cock sparrow." And he's saying, "Oh, Polly, are you a genuine Cockney?" So maybe it was love across the class divide. I think people's childhoods are such an overwhelming experience in the formation of anybody's character. I think if you're an artist, you can't be but influenced by what happened to you when you were little. Obviously, in some artists, you can point it out straight away. Other artists, there is somewhere underneath, there is a connection to what their childhood was like and what they experienced and what their parents were like and so on and so on, what their material circumstances were like. So it all plays in. But it's probably not a good idea to self-analyze too much, I think. I don't know whether this was a direct inspiration or not, maybe not, but there is a poem from the 1960s by an American poet called Richard Brautigan. It visualizes a perfect idyllic future where the AI, or the robots as he called them, have taken over, but they've helped humanity find a world that they're happy in, and everyone is happy and bright and everything's fine. And there's a line in the poem that says about the AIs, all watched over by machines of loving grace. Well, there you go. So that's our future for us. Sometimes people wonder why children feature so much in my pictures, or a lot of children in my pictures. I don't know. I had a friend who was a psychiatric nurse, and she said that it's obvious why there are so many children in your pictures. They are all the childhood friends that you never had. In my first 6 years living in the gardener's cottage, remote, I was an only child. There were no children for miles around. So I played on my own all the time. Quite happy, actually, I think. Quite content. Just playing with mud and sticks and bits of wood and piling things up. Also, I had access to some paint because there was a shed next to our garden, belonged to the farm, where there were lots of tins of old tractor paint. And if I asked my dad, he would stir a tin out, open a tin, pour some out into another tin for me to use. And I don't remember painting pictures, actually. I just painted bits of cardboard or bits of corrugated iron, just in one colour. I don't know why. And also I had a pedal car. I called it my tin and motor. That got painted dozens and dozens of times, one coat after another. So I was painting quite early on. I didn't actually get into trouble. My parents were very understanding. But when I found out I could do a swastika shape, which is quite a complicated shape for a 5-year-old, I painted swastikas all over the outside of our shed, which they weren't cross. They were amused and shocked, I think, a bit. But the swastikas were soon painted out, but that's fine. It's, you know, all part of my learning how to do art. So this future world, this perfect world, these children in a happy, sunny place, these are the robots in their flying saucers, and they're directing beams of happiness down to the earth below. And the children are all my children actually, they're nearly all nice, middle class, well-mannered, Enid Blyton-y or Ladybird Booky children. So they're all getting on fine. And in this perfect future, it's all about friendship and kindness. So there's no ambition, no striving. So it's a world that some people would find very congenial, other people would find absolutely unbearable. But anyway, this is the world created by the future robots. They've sent down a shower of iced lollies, just hover in the air, so you can just pluck them out of the air and eat them whenever you want to. A lot of butterflies, butterflies have always been a symbol of spiritual presences, really, in art, so that's what they are. The little boy in the top right of the picture is me, the one with the blue hair. The woman there is my cousin Brenda. I don't know what she's doing there. I've no idea. There are some black butterflies which worry me a bit. I think there may be a problem in this perfect world. The black butterflies are telling us something that this may not quite be the ideal world that the robots, the AIs, wanted it to be. And the paper aeroplanes they were a big thing in my childhood. Paper aeroplanes all the time. All the children here, I think all of them, are based on black and white illustrations for Enid Blyton books. Not Noddy, but a series of books about children of the sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 who have various adventures where nothing really dangerous happens and they're not really unpleasant in any way. Oh, and there's Jesus. Had to be there. Jesus as a boy. Although that is Jesus as a boy, it may be other things as well. So the halo may just be a symbol of spiritual calm or something like that, you know, as well as. So whenever anyone tells you what a specific bit in a painting means, you think, oh well, maybe not. I think when I die, the inscription on my tomb will be, it's what I've learned about life. It will say, everything is really complicated. And that's what I'd like to live, my bit of wisdom that I would like to live to the world. I work on fairly small work now because when I die, I don't want too much artwork left to have to go to landfill. So there are 3 quite big boxes in there, and I'm limiting myself from now on not to have more art than will fit into those 3 boxes.